And when you come close, it's scary.
The most disturbing thing about live television isn't what it shows you. It's what you didn't realize you were actually watching. These 10 sports moments looked completely different the day the world first saw them. Ordinary, exciting, even celebratory. Then the truth came out. And suddenly, every single frame became something else entirely. These are the 10 most disturbing sports TV moments because of what we know now. Number 10. The first thought Clint Malarchuk had, with a severed carotid artery spraying blood across the white ice, was his mother. She was watching the game at home on television. He needed to get off the ice before she watched him die. That was the only thing in his mind as he skated, with a 6-inch wound in his neck, toward the bench. This was March 22, 1989. Buffalo Sabres versus St. Louis Blues. But Blues forward Steve Tuttle had crashed into the goal crease, and as he fell, his skate blade swung upward and made contact with the right side of Malarchuk's neck. The blade severed his carotid artery and partially cut his jugular vein. Blood sprayed, not dripping and pooling, but spraying, across the white ice in an immediate widening dark red pool. 11 fans fainted in the stands. 2 suffered heart attacks. 3 players vomited on the ice. The TV cameras cut away the moment producers understood what they were looking at. Trainer Jim Pizzutelli, a former Vietnam War combat medic, jumped the boards, reached into the open wound with his bare fingers, and physically clamped the artery shut until doctors arrived. 300 stitches. Malarchuk asked the paramedics if they could get him back for the third period. He was at a press conference from his hospital bed the following day. Now here is the part that took 30 years to fully come out. Malarchuk spent 3 decades hiding what that night had done to him. PTSD. Nightmares about skate blades for years. Alcoholism. Multiple suicide attempts. In 2008, he shot himself through the chin with a rifle. The bullet passed through his tongue, his teeth, the roof of his mouth, stopping millimeters from his brain. He survived. He has spoken openly about it since, in the hope that other athletes don't spend 30 years doing what he did. The NHL never mandated neck protection after his injury. In 2008, Richard Zednik had his carotid artery cut by a skate blade in the same arena in Buffalo on live broadcast. In October 2023, Adam Johnson died in Sheffield, England, when a skate blade cut his throat live on air. 3 incidents, 1989, 2008, 2023, 34 years. The same injury, the same unprotected area. The NHL still has not mandated neck guards. Number 9. He died 4 hours before the opening ceremony. That is the fact that defines this entry, because what happened next is the thing nobody who watched the 2010 Winter Olympics opening ceremony can fully separate from the broadcast that followed it. Georgian luger Nodar Kumaritashvili, 21 years old, was taking a final training run at the Whistler Sliding Center that morning. Standard preparation before competition began. His sled entered the last curve too high on the wall, attempted a correction. The sled snapped back violently and ejected him over the sidewall at over 144 kilometers per hour. Beyond the barrier was an unpadded steel support pole. He struck it at full speed. CPR was performed immediately at the scene. He was airlifted to hospital and pronounced dead that afternoon. 4 hours later, the opening ceremony of the 2010 Winter Olympic Games began in Vancouver. Athletes from 82 nations marched in front of a worldwide television audience. Georgian athletes marched in black armbands. The broadcast went out to the world as planned. Now here is what makes this moment the one that doesn't leave you. Multiple athletes and coaches had formally complained about the Whistler track before the games began. It had been deliberately engineered to be the fastest luge course in Olympic history. Speed was the design intention. Record times were the goal. Several riders had experienced serious difficulties in training runs. A 21-year-old athlete from Georgia came to Canada to compete at the Olympics and struck an unpadded steel pole at 144 kilometers per hour. Number 8. One boxing match on live CBS television killed 3 people. And 2 of those 3 deaths had nothing to do with the fight itself. That is what makes November 13th, 1982, at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas more than just a tragedy. It is a document of institutional failure dressed up as a sporting event. Ray Mancini, the golden boy of American boxing. His opponent, Duk Koo Kim, was a relatively unknown challenger from South Korea. For 14 brutal rounds, Kim refused to be what the record book said he should be. Knocked down in the 11th, he got back up. Swollen, bloodied, barely recognizable by the later rounds, he kept coming forward. Mancini landed the combination in the 14th. Kim collapsed, rushed to hospital with severe brain bleeding. Emergency surgery was not enough. Duk Koo Kim died 4 days later. Ray Mancini spent years in grief. He visited Kim's family in Korea. He wept at press conferences for decades. He called it the defining tragedy of his life. He still does, but here is what that one broadcast set in motion that nobody talks about. 2 months after her son's death, Duk Koo Kim's mother took her own life. Then, 7 months after that, the referee who stopped the fight, Richard Green, died by suicide. He never recovered from the belief that he should have stopped it 1 round sooner. 1 broadcast, 3 deaths. The man whose job it was to protect him. Championship bouts had been 15 rounds for decades, despite accumulating evidence that the final rounds carried a disproportionately higher risk of fatal brain trauma. The change to 12 rounds only came after all 3 were gone. The format that killed them had been known to be dangerous for years. They waited for 3 people to die from 1 broadcast before they changed it. Number 7. 7 days before the race, Niki Lauda stood in a room with his fellow Formula One drivers and asked them not to race. He told them exactly what he thought would happen if they did. 1 helicopter parked at the far end of a 14-mile circuit. Insufficient fire marshals. Inadequate emergency response for the most dangerous track in the world. The race was the 1976 German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, 14 miles of road carved through the Eifel Mountains, lined with trees and rock faces and almost no runoff space. On the second lap, Lauda's Ferrari snapped to the right. He hit an embankment and bounced back onto the racing line, completely engulfed in flames. 2 other cars hit the burning wreck. Lauda was trapped inside. He could not get out. Drivers Merzario, Edwards, Lunger, and Erdl stopped their cars, ran into the fire with their bare hands, and pulled him free, suffering burns themselves in the process. Niki Lauda was inside that burning car for nearly a minute. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd degree burns across his face, scalp, and hands. He lost most of his right ear, his eyebrows, his eyelids. A priest administered last rites. Doctors did not expect him to survive. 6 weeks later, burns still raw and bandages blood-soaked at press conferences, Niki Lauda returned to Formula One and nearly won the World Championship. Now here is what that 1 vote means. 1 more driver votes to boycott, and Lauda's face is unmarked. He does not spend a minute burning inside a car. No priest gives him last rites. Though the Nürburgring Nordschleife was never used for Formula One again after that day. A direct admission that everything Lauda had argued in that room was correct. The vote went the wrong way by 1. 3 of the drivers who voted against the boycott, Tom Price, Ronnie Peterson, Patrick DePiler, later died in separate Formula One accidents. 1 vote. Number 6. 20 laps before Dale Earnhardt died, he got on his radio and told his team owner that somebody was going to get killed out there that day. He was right. He just didn't know it was going to be him. To understand the full weight of what happened on February 18th, 2001, you need one number: 4. Earnhardt was the 4th NASCAR driver in 8 months to die from the exact same injury. Adam Petty, Kenny Irwin Jr., Tony Roper, all dead from basilar skull fractures, all within the same calendar year. The sport had a pattern with a body count attached to it, and it still had not forced a mandatory change: the Daytona 500. The first ever on Fox Sports under a brand new billion-dollar deal. Final lap. The 7-time champion, the man they called the Intimidator, made contact with Sterling Marlin's car and hit the outside wall at turn 4. His two teammates crossed the line first and second. The Fox broadcast cut to victory lane, confetti, champagne, Michael Waltrip winning for the very first time in 462 career starts. His brother Darrell calling the race, screaming with joy while simultaneously saying, "As excited and proud as I am for Michael, I'm praying for Dale." 20 feet away, Ken Schrader had walked to Earnhardt's window, looked inside, and immediately started waving for help. He later said he didn't want to be the one to tell Richard Childress what he had seen. 20 minutes after the checkered flag, NASCAR VP Mike Helton walked to a podium in front of the cameras. "This is undoubtedly one of the toughest announcements I've ever personally had to make. We've lost Dale Earnhardt." The entire sport went silent. Now here's what makes this story unbearable. A device called the Hans, a head and neck restraint specifically engineered to prevent the exact basilar skull fracture that had already killed 3 drivers that year. Its co-inventor Robert Hubbard was physically present in the Daytona garage that week. Dale Jarrett was fitted. Bill Elliott was fitted. Earnhardt watched and walked away. 3 days before the race, he'd sat with Jarrett over beers and asked about the device. Was it comfortable? Did it restrict vision? Did it change how the car felt? He listened, then walked away unconvinced. He'd survived 20 years in this sport without it. Why change now? He was the only driver who had not attended the Hans safety presentation in January 2001. The device that would have saved his life was being fitted to other drivers in the garage stalls beside his, on the same morning, in the same building. Nobody in Victory Lane knew yet. Number 5. In April 1993, Monica Seles was the most dominant tennis player on earth, 19 years old. World number 1, 8 Grand Slams, and counting. And then she sat down during a changeover in Hamburg, and a man in the front row stood up. Günther Parsche leaned over the barrier and drove a 9-inch boning knife into her upper back between her shoulder blades, on live television. Seles screamed. For a few seconds she didn't understand. The mind refuses to process it. Then she saw the blood. Guards wrestled Parsche away before he could reach her a second time, which he later admitted in court was his full intention. Now here is the detail that transforms this from a tragedy into something else entirely. Günther Parsche never spent a single day in prison. A German court found him psychologically abnormal. 2 years suspended. He walked out and went home. His stated reason for attacking the world's best tennis player: he wanted Steffi Graf to be number 1 again. Within 5 weeks, Graf had reclaimed the ranking. She won the next 6 Grand Slams, while Seles could not compete. When Seles returned in 1995, she was never the same player. The psychological damage of being stabbed on court and watching the man responsible face no consequence never fully healed. Martina Navratilova said, "We'd be talking about Monica with the most Grand Slam titles, ahead of Margaret Court, ahead of Steffi Graf." Mary Jo Fernandez said she would have won at least double the titles she actually claimed. Seles herself said, "The attacker is free, and I'm still in prison." Number 4. The Pontiac Silverdome was the loudest it had been all season. 75,000 people inside on December 21st, 1997, watching the Detroit Lions lead the New York Jets in the final game of the year, with Barry Sanders just yards away from crossing the 2,000-yard rushing mark, only the second player in NFL history to reach it. Crowd was already roaring before the snap. This was supposed to be a day everyone remembered fondly for decades. Then Lions linebacker Reggie Brown assisted on a routine tackle, a 2-yard gain. Brown did not get up. His face and neck turned blue and then purple in front of a national television audience. He had stopped breathing. His spinal cord had been bruised so severely it collapsed his ability to breathe and move any limb simultaneously. Players from both teams, Lions and Jets, walked slowly toward Brown and knelt around him on the turf. Some were praying, some were crying. 75,000 people went completely silent. CBS cameras showed CPR being performed on a man who had turned blue, an IV bag held above him. The entire stadium watching and saying nothing. He lay there for 17 minutes. Emergency surgery the following morning. 2 days later, Reggie Brown took his first steps. But here is what makes this broadcast impossible to look away from, even 30 years later. At the exact moment Brown's heart was being kept beating by CPR on one side of that field, Barry Sanders crossed 2,000 rushing yards on the other. One of the greatest individual achievements in NFL history happened at the identical moment a 23-year-old appeared to be dying on the same grass. Nobody could celebrate. The same headfirst tackle mechanism put Ryan Shazier on a stretcher on Monday Night Football in 2017. It caused Damar Hamlin's cardiac arrest on live primetime television in 2023. 3 broadcasts, 3 decades, the same injury, the same institutional knowledge and insufficient response. Barry Sanders crossed 2,000 yards that afternoon. You can find the celebrations, or you can find the footage of what was happening 17 yards away at the exact same moment. Number 3. For 11 seconds during the first lap of the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix, the International Formula One broadcast showed nothing but fire. Romain Grosjean's Haas had made contact at over 220 kilometers per hour, pierced the triple-layer steel barrier, and the fuel tank had ruptured on impact. Martin Brundle said on air, "That's Grosjean. I think that's Grosjean at 140 miles per hour." Then a figure appeared in the flames, hands burning through his gloves, race suit alight, climbing out of the fire, alive and conscious. He said afterward, "I thought about my kids. I cannot die today. For my kids, I cannot die." He suffered second-degree burns and returned to racing in 2021. Now here is what makes this story something entirely different. When Formula One proposed the Halo device in 2016, a titanium arch around the cockpit specifically designed to prevent fatal penetrations, the reaction was near unanimous rejection. Multiple teams voted against it. The drivers called it the ugliest modification in F1 history, unnecessary, and overreach. The FIA forced it through as mandatory in 2018 over sustained opposition from across the paddock. Every person who voted against that device was arguing, without understanding it, that Romain Grosjean should die in that fire. Because without Halo, the steel barrier at Bahrain would have entered his helmet at 220 kilometers per hour. Number 2. It looked like a tackle. That is the thing about this broadcast. It looked for one fraction of a second completely normal. A routine contact play in a National Rugby League match between Newcastle and Melbourne on March 24, 2014. Then Alex McKinnon's body went past horizontal, and it was not normal at all. 3 defenders had converged at once. One lifted him. The others drove forward. Under their combined weight, McKinnon was driven straight down onto his head and neck. The compression on his cervical spine was instantaneous and total. For several seconds, he lay completely still on the grass. Then came the screaming, the specific, terrifying sound of someone who senses something catastrophic has happened and cannot locate where. Players from both teams stepped back. Scans confirmed fractures to the vertebrae in his neck. His spinal cord was permanently damaged. Alex McKinnon was diagnosed quadriplegic, paralyzed from the chest down. But here is what makes this particular broadcast genuinely unbearable to watch in hindsight. The tackle that left Alex McKinnon paralyzed for life was already illegal when it happened. The rule against lifting a player and driving him headfirst into the ground exists in rugby league specifically because of the catastrophic, documented risk to the cervical spine. It had existed for years. Everyone on that field knew it. The investigation confirmed the breach. The 3 players involved were suspended for several games each. Alex McKinnon received a life sentence. The men who gave it to him were back on the field within weeks. Number 1. There is a sound in sports broadcasting that viewers who heard it on November 18, 1985, have never fully shaken. It is a crack picked up live by ABC's broadcast microphones on Monday Night Football and transmitted into living rooms across America before anyone in the stadium understood what had just happened. Joe Theismann is rolling right to throw. Lawrence Taylor, the Giants' all-pro linebacker, widely considered the most ferocious defensive player in NFL history, comes from behind when his knee drives directly into Theismann's lower right leg. Both the tibia and the fibula snap simultaneously. Taylor, a man who built his entire career on never showing fear for anyone, immediately starts waving both arms wildly in the air. Theismann is on his back, his lower leg pointing in a direction a lower leg is never meant to point. Now here is what the cameras never showed you. The man who made that tackle was fighting a battle nobody in that stadium knew about. Lawrence Taylor would later admit in his autobiography, and in multiple interviews across the years, that during this exact period, he was consumed by a severe cocaine addiction. The 1985 season was one of the darkest stretches of his private life. Regular use, multiple failed drug tests, and eventual suspension from the league. The tackle that ended Theismann's career happened on the biggest sports broadcast in America. One man's career ended in public. The other man's destruction was happening just out of frame, in private, every single week. The crack still sounds the same when you watch it back, but now you know what you are really watching. Which of these hit you hardest? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the moments sports history tried to bury.